Every year, 20 million people visit the Great Pyramid and are told the same story, a tomb for a dead king built by 100,000 men dragging stones up ramps. And every year, the same questions go unanswered. Why is a tomb built from quartz-bearing granite that concentrates electromagnetic energy? Why does it contain chemical residues that match acid-limestone reactions? Why were copper fittings sealed behind stone doors and shafts that go nowhere? Why does the Grand Gallery narrow like a textbook Venturi nozzle? And why, in 4,500 years, has no one ever found a body? What if the Great Pyramid wasn't built for the dead? What if it was built for the living, as the most sophisticated power plant the ancient world ever produced? Here's what we know for certain. Around 2560 BCE, during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, Egyptians constructed the largest single building in the ancient world. 2.3 million limestone blocks, 6 million tons, a base covering 13 acres, level to within an inch. The mainstream explanation has three phases. First, Khufu planned a burial chamber underground, the Subterranean Chamber, carved 30 meters into bedrock. Then he changed his mind and ordered a chamber higher up, the Queen's Chamber. Then he changed his mind again and built the King's Chamber, 60 meters above ground, from solid Aswan granite, hauled 800 kilometers up the Nile. 3 plans. 3 failures of vision. That's the story. But here's the problem. The Subterranean Chamber has a finished ceiling, precise and flat, and an unfinished floor. Why finish the ceiling of a room you're abandoning? The Queen's Chamber has sealed shafts hidden behind 5 inches of limestone, shafts that don't exit the pyramid, fitted with polished blocking stones and copper hardware. Why install precision hardware in passages you're leaving behind? And the King's Chamber contains a granite box too wide to fit through any passage, meaning it was built into the room during construction. A room designed around a box that never held a body. These aren't loose ends. They're features. Let's start at the bottom. 30 meters below the base of the pyramid, carved into the living bedrock of the Giza Plateau, sits the Subterranean Chamber. It's the only room in the pyramid not built from blocks. It's cut directly from the rock. In 2024, researchers at the University of North Carolina mapped a lost branch of the Nile called the Arumut Branch, 64 kilometers of extinct river, 2 to 8 meters deep, running directly alongside the Great Pyramid. The water table beneath the plateau was high enough that Colonel Vicey, digging from the chamber pit in 1837, hit the Nile water level just 12 meters down. The pyramid was built on top of an aquifer. The chamber has 2 features that make no sense as a tomb. First, a dead-end passage extending 16 meters south, terminating in solid rock. Acoustic research measured this passage, generating infrasound at 5.13 Hz, a frequency below human hearing, but powerful enough to record on a phone. It functions as a resonance tube. Second, a vertical pit shaft in the floor that descends toward the water table. In 1817, when explorer Giovanni Caviglia first cleared the passage to this chamber, he reported smelling sulfur. Engineer John Cadman built a working-scale model of this chamber geometry as a hydraulic pulse generator. It worked. The characteristic heartbeat thump could be felt through the ground 20 feet away and heard 100 feet out. The chamber's shape absorbed the reverse pulse, smoothing the output. His estimate: the system could generate 20 to 30 megawatts of input power per pulse cycle. And on the chamber walls, calcium sulfate deposits. That's the exact product of sulfuric acid reacting with limestone. Now, from the Subterranean Chamber, we go up. The well shaft is a rough, winding passage, 50 meters of vertical climb, connecting the bottom of the pyramid to the Grand Gallery at the top. It's the only crudely hewn feature in a structure where everything else is cut to fractions of a millimeter. Every other passage is precision geometry. This one is irregular, jagged, indirect. Halfway up, it passes through a natural limestone cave called the Grotto, a cavity that existed in the bedrock before the pyramid was built. The builders planned the entire shaft system around it. Now, think about what happens when you generate steam in a limestone chamber 30 meters underground. Hot gas rises. A 50-meter vertical shaft creates natural draft, same chimney effect that's been used to ventilate mines since antiquity. The irregular walls create turbulence that regulates flow. The grotto acts as an expansion chamber, a pressure buffer preventing surges from reaching the upper system. At the top of the well shaft, the original entrance was sealed from inside by a ramp stone, cemented into the Grand Gallery floor. When Piazzi Smith examined it in 1865, he noted the stone had been blown outward from within, as if by uncontrolled explosive force. Mainstream archaeology says tomb robbers broke through. Maybe. Or maybe something inside was under pressure. You emerge from the well shaft into the most extraordinary corridor in the ancient world, the Grand Gallery. 47 meters long, 8.5 meters tall, 7 corbelled courses of polished Tura limestone narrowing from 2 meters at the base to 1 meter at the ceiling, a precise 2-to-1 area reduction. In fluid dynamics, this geometry has a name: It's a Venturi nozzle. When gas flows through a progressively narrowing passage, velocity increases and pressure decreases. If the area halves, the velocity doubles. The gallery is angled at 26 degrees, steep enough to provide gravitational driving force for rising gas, shallow enough for a 47-meter acceleration run. But here's the detail that changed everything for me. 27 pairs of rectangular slots are cut into the stone ramps on both sides. When Christopher Dunn examined the slots in 1986, he discovered the bottom of every slot is cut parallel to the horizontal, not perpendicular to the gallery slope. Whatever was inserted into these slots was designed to stand straight up regardless of the gallery's angle. That's not a storage rack. That's a mounting system for precision equipment. Dunn's proposal. The slots held an array of Helmholtz resonators, acoustic devices tuned to different frequencies, converting Earth's seismic vibrations into focused airborne sound directed at the King's Chamber. NASA acoustic engineer Tom Danley measured the gallery resonating at F-sharp, and on the ceiling, directly above the slots, scorch marks. At the top of the Grand Gallery, a stone step, the Great Step, marks the transition to a low passage leading into the Antechamber. This small room is cased in granite. 3 pairs of vertical grooves are cut into the east and west walls, each wide enough to receive a sliding granite panel. Only one panel remains, the granite leaf. In engineering, 3 sliding panels in sequential grooves with a consistent bore through the entire assembly is called a multi-stage gate valve. You regulate flow by raising or lowering the panels to different heights. It's a throttle. It controls what enters the King's Chamber. Through the throttle into the heart of the machine, the King's Chamber, 100% Aswan granite, 10 meters by 5 meters by 5.8 meters, 100 granite blocks, the largest weighing 80 tons, fitted so tightly a sheet of paper won't slide between them. Above it, 5 relieving chambers stacked vertically, separated by 43 granite beams with a combined weight of 400 tons. The structure is massively over-engineered for a burial vault. In 2018, researchers at ITMO University published a peer-reviewed paper in the Journal of Applied Physics showing that the pyramid's geometry concentrates electromagnetic energy specifically in these chambers. The result was unambiguous. The chamber resonates at 121 Hz. The granite coffer resonates between 114 and 122 Hz. The coffer was tuned to the room, and the granite itself is 20 to 30% quartz. Quartz is piezoelectric. It generates an electric charge when mechanically stressed. Apply acoustic pressure to quartz-rich granite at its resonant frequency, and you get voltage. 7 of the 9 ceiling beams are cracked. Whatever happened in this room generated enough energy to fracture 80-ton granite beams. Below the King's Chamber sits the Queen's Chamber. And this is where the chemistry happens. Unlike the King's Chamber, it's built from limestone, the very material that reacts with acid. 2 narrow shafts were hidden behind the chamber walls, completely sealed. In 1872, Wayman Dixon found them by chiseling through 5 inches of solid limestone. They run 65 meters through the pyramid and terminate at precisely finished limestone doors with copper fittings hammered through the stone. The copper pins pass completely through and end in small, carefully crafted loops on the backside. On the walls, salt deposits up to an inch thick. Analysis found calcium carbonate, sodium chloride, and calcium sulfate. That's the exact chemical signature of acid reacting with limestone to produce hydrogen gas. In 1998, the deposits were cleaned out, before any modern spectroscopic analysis was performed. The evidence was destroyed. So we have a system, water and chemistry at the bottom, steam rising through the well shaft, acceleration through the Grand Gallery, regulation at the Antechamber, generation in the King's Chamber, chemical production in the Queen's Chamber. But where does the energy go? 2 shafts exit the King's Chamber and reach the exterior of the pyramid. The capstone is missing. Obelisks across Egypt were tipped in electrum, a gold-silver alloy. At the pyramid's original height, the atmospheric potential difference between ground and apex is 14 to 29,000 volts. From the base, an enclosed stone causeway, 741 meters long, ran downhill to a valley temple on the Nile. Every modern power plant is built near water, connected to transmission lines, and feeds into a distribution grid. The Great Pyramid has all 3. Let's be clear about what is established fact and what is interpretation. Fact: the Queen's Chamber shafts were sealed at both ends with copper hardware and polished doors. No tomb theory explains this. Fact: calcium sulfate on the chamber walls is the product of sulfuric acid plus limestone. Fact: the granite coffer was placed during construction. It's wider than any passage. No body, no lid, no inscriptions have ever been found. Fact, the ITMO study confirmed the pyramid concentrates electromagnetic energy in its chambers. Peer-reviewed physics. Fact, the Grand Gallery narrows 2 to 1 over 47 meters. In fluid dynamics, this doubles velocity. Fact, Petrie found drill marks with a feed rate 500 times faster than modern diamond drills. Fact, the 2024 Aramat branch discovery confirmed a Nile waterway running alongside 31 pyramids. Fact, the salt deposits were cleaned out in 1998 before modern analysis. The interpretation that these facts describe a power plant is a theory, but the facts themselves are not in dispute. And the conventional explanation requires you to believe the most precisely engineered structure in the ancient world is full of coincidental features that just happen to describe a functioning energy system. If the pyramid generated power, where did it go? Old Kingdom Egypt ran the ancient world's largest copper operation. Copper melts at 1085 Celsius. Charcoal furnaces required massive imported timber. Electric arc heating eliminates the fuel problem. Queen Hetepheres' tomb contains gilded furniture with gold bonded to wood at extraordinary quality. Electroplating coats complex shapes uniformly and fast. Egyptians painted elaborate scenes deep inside tombs with no natural light. Oil lamps consume oxygen and produce soot. Electric lighting solves all of that. The Valley Temple sits on the Nile Harbor, the interface between the pyramid and the river economy. This was an industrial port. And then there's the grid. The Aramat branch ran past 31 pyramids. If each had a similar setup, a generator on high ground, a causeway transmitting downhill, a Valley Temple distributing at the river, you're not looking at one power plant. You're looking at a network. The Nile is backbone. Power at regular intervals along the most productive stretch of the ancient world. I'm not asking you to believe this. I'm asking you to look at the evidence and decide whether tomb is really the simplest explanation. The ancient Egyptians had copper, magnetite, sulfur, gypsum, granite, and electrum. They synthesized Egyptian blue at controlled temperatures. They alloyed arsenic into copper for harder tools. They coordinated 20-year construction projects across 800 kilometers of supply chain. We keep asking whether they could have done this. Maybe the better question is, with everything they already knew, why wouldn't they? The pyramid is still standing. The evidence is in the stone. The only question is whether we're willing to read it.